You guys asked for it, so I decided to read more historical romances. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Now for today's video, I'm going to do a quick wrap up of a stack of historical romances that I have read recently. I posted a historical romance video a couple of days ago, and so many of you guys commented and told me that you guys found my channel because of historical romances, that you guys fell in love with historical romances because of my channel, and I missed putting out historical romance videos on my channel. A lot of people have since that I've watched, a lot of booktubers have since put out a lot of historical romance videos, and I kind of feel a little bit FOMO, like I'm feeling like I'm missing out because I'm not reading as much. But I have since tried to incorporate more historical romances in my TBR so that I can give you guys some honest reviews of some books. Now, the books I'm about to talk about are these books right here. Most of these books are published a couple years ago already, or they are published last year, so they're a little bit older titles, but then there are some that were published this year because I really just wanted to pick them up since they came in the mail, and I really wanted to see if they were going to live up to my hype because some of these are from my favorite authors. So let's begin with some of the books that I read recently. So the first book that I wanted to talk about is this one from Anna Harrington called An Unexpected Earl. Now, Anna Harrington is actually one of my favorite historical romance authors. She is my auto-buy author because once upon a time she published 2 series with Forever Romance, and I read one of the series and they were like all 5 out of 5-star reads. I gave them such high ratings because they were emotionally draining me, and the love between the 2 characters were just so strong. Never have I ever felt that way about these couples in the historical romances that she has written. So she is literally having me in a chokehold. So obviously I have become a loyal reader of Anna Harrington, and I have read some of her indie romances because she does publish herself on Amazon, and I like them too. And this series actually follows like a group of women, and it's like a secret organization that help women gain their rights and to ultimately have safety in a time where abusers of women can get away with anything. So this is actually book 2 in the series. The first book is called The Inconvenient Duke, and that one was very dark. It was very adventurous. It was very heavy, I would say. And I feel like that this series is actually very action-packed, and that it has a lot more darker elements than I would like in historical romance, and it wasn't something I was expecting. The first book, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And this one kind of follows a plot that is a lighter tone. So our heroine's brother is captured, and unfortunately she needs the help of our hero because she can't really do too much since she is out of her element. So our hero kind of steps in because ultimately our hero has his own motives and objectives too. He's trying to stop a group of women because he's realizing that the group of women are putting a lot of people in danger. So this is kind of like one of those relationships where there's a lot of push and there's a lot of pull because they're on both opposing sides, but they ultimately want to help each other in the end. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because I felt that once again it focused really heavy on like the action scenes, and it focused really heavily on the mystery solving of like what the brother could have done in order to be captured, and then it also like followed this like giant hunt where they have to go figure out where the brother is. So it lost my attention, and I didn't really believe in the romance between our 2 characters, or it just, the chemistry wasn't as strong as I would have liked. So I'm a little bit disappointed in this book, and it actually made me think, do I even want to continue the series, since I feel like the whole series is going to follow at least the same tone or follow the same plot line of the organization. So I don't know, we'll see. I have book number 3 and 4 on my shelves too as well, so maybe I'll just pick it up, but not in the meantime. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below if you guys already read this series. Okay, so the next book that I did read is this older novel from Caroline Linden called It Takes a Scandal. Now, when I read the synopsis of this book, I knew I had to pick it up right away. It was one of those books that is just following a trope, a plot line that I just really enjoy. So it essentially follows our heroine, who is very wealthy, and a lot of the suitors that have come to propose to her are really just in it for the money, and she's sick and tired of it because she obviously wants to marry for love. And then she is very attracted to the grumpy neighbor next door, who just so happens to be our hero. So our hero came back bruised, battered, and just like a different man from war, and he's just grumpy all the time because he feels like he's less of a man because of his shattered leg. His injury is actually preventing him from doing any of the things that he wants to do. Like if he wanted to go back to war, he can't do it anymore because he is, you know, injured and he can't do anything. So he is dealing with his masculinity issues right now. Meanwhile, he is trying to keep his distance from our heroine, who is like literal sunshine. They should not be together, but they are drawn together like moths to a flame, and they are always chatting with each other, getting to know each other, and then ultimately can't keep their hands off of each other. Our hero really wants to stay away from her because he knows that she would be a lot better off marrying someone of equal status as her, someone who can provide for her, but she doesn't care about these things. She only cares about falling in love, and she loves him. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because I wanted him to be more grumpy. I thought he was going to be super, super angry and bitter and grumpy, and I thought he was just going to push her away. But ultimately, this book fell flat of it. It more leaned towards a hero who was injured, but really nice, which is fine, but it wasn't just what I was advertised from the back of this book. And he just really cared for her all the time, and it was to the point where they both fell into this like lust trap in the middle of the book. So if this was drawn out a little bit more like the book from Julia Quinn called Sum of All Kisses, I would have liked this a lot more, but unfortunately, because it didn't follow that long angsty plot line that I was so used to with these types of tropes in this plot, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. Will I continue reading Caroline Linden? Absolutely. I adore her writing. Okay, so the next book that I did pick up is this new one from Vivienne Lorrett called How to Steal a Scoundrel's Heart, and this is part of her The Mating Habits of Scoundrels series. Now, I've read every book in this series. So the first book is called Lord Holt Takes Bride, the second one's called My Kind of Earl, and then the third one is called The Wrong Marquis. I really like The Wrong Marquis, so I was very excited to pick up the fourth book in the series because of how much I liked the third book. The third book, I just remember it being very fun and flirtatious. It essentially involved a heroine who had wanted nothing to do with the hero because the hero was deemed as like kind of like a class clown situation, and a womanizer too as well. So I just fell in love with that story. So I wanted to see if the fourth book would be just as good. So the fourth book essentially involves a heroine who has been cheated out of her inheritance, and she really needs the help of our hero to try to steal her inheritance back. But in order to pay him back for what he's about to do for her, they agree to have like an affair. And they thought that, you know, it would just be a nice business deal because it was kind of, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like an enemies to lovers romance where they just didn't really like each other at first. But then the closer they worked together on trying to steal her inheritance and also diving deeper into their world of discovery with each other, they fall in love, and it's that kind of sort of slow burn romance. Now, this one was definitely a very slow burn. It took a long time before I finally felt that these two characters were suitable for each other and that they could be falling in love. And this book was also really fun too because I don't know if you can see this, at the corner of the book there is a dog, and this dog gets himself into a lot of trouble a lot of the times, and it was just so fun to see whenever our characters are interacting with an animal. Overall, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. It just was a good book. It was a good book. Don't get me wrong. It was a good book. It was a solid novel, but it didn't give me that oomph, that pizzazz, that spice for me to give it anything higher. Well, I continue to read Vivienne Lorrett, of course, because I just fell in love with her stories. So I just love Vivienne's books. I think she does an excellent job at writing stories that definitely captivate you. Okay, so the next book that I did read is this one from Megan Frampton. This one's called A Wicked Bargain for the Duke, and this is part of her Hazards of Duke series. I don't think I've read like most of the books in the series. Yeah, I didn't. I didn't read the first book called Never Kiss a Duke, or I never read Tall, Duke, and Dangerous. I just picked up book number 3. I typically don't do this anymore because I don't want to ruin like other characters' stories by reading a random book out of the series. This year has just been a year of reckless reading for me, so I am reading books out of order. So this book follows the premise that's very similar to Julia Quinn's The Viscount Who Loved Me. It essentially follows our hero, who is a duke, and he doesn't want to be a duke, but he got the title, so now he needs to marry someone so that he can produce an heir. And he picks the most perfect girl ever in the ballroom, but unfortunately for him, this perfect girl is also the younger sister of our heroine, who is wanting nothing to do with him, and she does not want him to manipulate her younger sister. So she steps in the way, and she always constantly makes it very hard for him to get to know the little sister. And unfortunately for them, they both get caught up in a very scandalous position that forces both of them to be wed, because now her reputation is ruined, and now they think that he's a scoundrel if he doesn't marry her. So they have this marriage of convenience where they both have to agree to have some nights of passion so that hopefully she can conceive a spare, but then they both agree that like feelings won't get involved and then we'll never fall in love. But you know how these stories go. They obviously do fall in love. So this one, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because I don't know, like I like the plot, I like the story, but the execution felt a little bit flat for me. I felt that like there were some parts that kind of dragged on forever and ever. And what I didn't really expect from this book too as well was that it was really hot. Like there was just so much hot sensual scenes that it just took away from like the overall like plot building, because it just felt like that there was no plot, and it just felt like that it was just these two people that were just kind of forced together. So it wasn't as memorable as well. Like I couldn't really tell you anything special about these two people that I really liked and why I wanted them together in the end, or why I wanted them to be happy. So yeah, overall, it was an average read. It wasn't bad because I've read a lot of Megan Frampton books already, and some of her books I gave 2 out of 5 stars. But this one was one of the better books that she has written and that I have read. So the next book that I did pick up is this one from Lorraine Heath. It's one of my most anticipated reads of this year because I freaking love Lorraine Heath. She's one of my favorite historical romance authors. This one's called The Return of the Duke, and it's part of her Once Upon a Dukedom series. This is book number 3. Book number 1, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Book number 2, I think I gave it another 4.5 out of 5 stars, or a 4 out of 5 stars. I just really like those two books. And this one is like kind of a continuation of the storyline where our hero and his family lost everything because of this major scandal that took place that ruined his whole family's life. So basically his father got convicted of this like huge crime / scandal, and then the kingdom kind of stripped away the family's like estate, power, and money, and the family has to rebuild themselves. And unfortunately our hero and his brother and his sister are very bitter and resentful towards what actually went down, or what they think supposedly went down. And so our hero hunts down the mistress, or the supposed mistress, of his father, and he then goes and tries to demand for answers to try to solve this long-lasting mystery between the whole family. At first I didn't really like our heroine because I was really nervous that she was going to be like some like really nasty wicked creature that is a homewrecker, and I was really nervous about where Lorraine Heath would kind of like take the direction of her character. But I was so pleasantly surprised. Once again, the queen knows what she's doing, and she wrote a really good, interesting character. Her backstory, very interesting. Her current profession, very interesting. She's a total badass, and I really liked how her job was unconventional for women in this time period. And then our hero was the kind, supportive man that we always want from a Lorraine Heath novel. And our hero actually wasn't that spiteful and that bitter about his background. So that was actually like a breath of fresh air, because I was kind of really nervous that our hero would be very like evil or like very spiteful and like just bitter all the time, and it would just ruin the vibe of the whole book. But it turned out that both of them are perfect for each other and they are so cute when they are together. Unfortunately, what happened was that this book focused a lot on like trying to clear our hero's father's name and therefore his family's name, that it kind of took the enjoyment out of like the romance, because it felt like it was a lot of plot heavy, action heavy scenes instead of, you know, our two characters slowly falling in love. They did have a lot of scenes where they talked about their backstories and they kind of like justified why they are the way that they are, but it just wasn't enough for me to kind of like give it anything higher than a 3 out of 5 stars. Honestly, it's still a really cute novel. It just wasn't as cute as the first and second book, and it felt a little bit slow towards the middle because it was so focused on this crime solving mystery thing. What I really liked about this book even more was that the author's note is so good. So Lorraine Heath explains the reason why our character is the way that she is and how she came up with the story idea for this book, which made it even more interesting. So on second thought, I'm going to bump this book up to a 3.5 out of 5 stars, simply because it was just so creative and so different from all the other historical romances that I've read. Lorraine Heath definitely is a really good author in the sense that she creates these interesting plots in historical romances. So if you guys ever want something that is really different from all the other historical romances that you've been reading, then you definitely need to check out Lorraine Heath. But anyways, that is it for all the historical romances that I have read recently. Let me know down below if you've read any of these historical romances that I've talked about. Love to hear your opinions on them. I'll see you guys again next time in a new video. Bye!